Hello, I'm your host, Ol'edo, and you are welcome to the Seed Podcast. Is this not a little funny? Guess where I am right now? I am in Costa. I'm currently shooting a podcast in a coffee shop where they play music. Why? You're gonna have to ask my father because when I asked him where he wanted the next episode to be, he said Costa. I completely forgot that they played music and things on the speakers. But listen, guys, we have a great mic, so we're gonna make it work. How for everybody? How's your week been? What have we done? What are we doing? I'm gonna start what I did last week Sunday because I was supposed to shoot this earlier than today, or I thought that I was supposed to, but I ended up not doing that. But last week Sunday, I got to speak on a fashion panel at Africa Day in Dublin. So much fun. I think that was the first time I really got to like yap about fashion. Like I never do it. I never talk about fashion like that, but that was such a fun conversation. Basically, there were a couple questions that stood out to me that I still remember. Basically asked about like what the future of African fashion is, what makes up African fashion. We talked about like the current state of African fashion, the commercialization of it. So, it's getting more and more accepted by the rest of the world, the Western world as well. You know what I'm talking about. It's becoming universal now. So we spoke about that. And I think the first question I remember being asked was how I maintain the authenticity of African fashion while still like, sharing it with my audience. So like African fashion as it pertains to technology and growth and evolution and all that kind of stuff. So I said basically that I think for me it's just about like showing the process. I mean, as someone who went to school for fashion design and fabric manipulation, pattern making, all the things that you do, right? Um when I think about clothes, I think about them a lot of times in fragmented pieces before we get to the full thing. So I think there's such an art in like sharing that with my audience. And I use the example of a piece that I made for an African ball I had last year. And basically, what I wanted to give was Igbo Maiden. But I had seen this dress from Desiree Iyama. I hope I'm correct. And it was a paneled bodice with a halter, two ties, and these like square or rectangular tassels just like coming out in the front. And I just thought that just gives Igbo Maiden, but like evolved, right? And then the bottom piece was again a paneled skirt with like gathered, like a very flamboyant gathered bottom, basically. So that was me like upstating something that already existed, but making it something else. So it's like the Igbo maiden outfit uniquely exists in its own space, but that was my take on it. And I feel like getting to share that with your audience is just great. So that was the first question I answered. The second question was that I remember, or that like really like stuck out to me, was like, what is African fashion? And I basically said, because I feel like a lot of time when we describe African fashion, it's very much like, oh, it's the culture, it's the people, it's the passion, it's us. You know what I'm saying? And that is right. But I think as our art and our culture begins to be consumed, or is beginning to be consumed universally, we now have to say what we have to be able to articulate practically what African fashion is, so that when people start appropriating, and you know what I mean, I'm not even speaking so much on like in terms of race. I'm talking about fast fashion when it starts to get appropriate. Not that it's not already happening, but when that starts happening, we can be like, oh no, that is African fashion. That is a definition for that. So for me, African fashion is the patterns, the way that the fabric is made. It's the colors, it's the fabric, it's the fabric manipulation, it's the way that the patterns are drafted, It's the illustration. It's the things. It's the processes that create a specific garment. Like for example, if you're making an Iro and Buba, right? There's a pattern. There's a way that it should look. This cannot be mistaken for Iro and Buba because that is distinctly what it is. So we have to be able to describe, right? It's also the language. You know what I'm saying? Like when I think about a brand like Meiji Meiji, it's very much like graphic, a lot of color, a lot of patterns. It's a lot of like graphic design. It's the words, it's the slangs, it's the way that we talk about our clothing. So these are things that we can identify. These are things that are not abstract, and someone who knows nothing about the culture or is learning or coming into like the understanding or like learning about it, there's information to be given. So then the last question I was asked was, what is the future, or what do you see the future of fashion being? And everyone had their answers, which were lovely. But my answer, the one that I was able to give in the moment, was I see that the future of African fashion is rebellion. And not rebellion in the negative sense, but more so, we know what it's like to have been streamlined. As someone who grew up in Nigeria, I remember we weren't allowed to use attachment to make our hair to school. If we couldn't tame the mane, we had to cut it. That was normal. I lived in Nigeria, you know. So even in our own countries, we have been streamlined, and now we're coming to a place where we're like fully embracing the normalcy of who we are, because it's not a trend, it's a reality. We wear all the colors to every event. There's never a time where it's like, we have to, you know what I'm saying? We are embracing the reality of who we are. So it is rebellion in the sense that we're going to be pushing back on the lines that we have one place on ourselves and have been placed on us. I don't want to make it sound too like, but that's just a fact. Positive rebellion. And it's not even something that where it's not always a conscious thing. It's just reality. Yeah. Second thing, let's not be afraid of the fact that African fashion is going to be gentrified. I remember, I don't know when it was, but I don't know, I'm sure we all saw it on TikTok where like some popular brand had made a bag that looked like the Ghana Moscow. I don't know if we're calling it that anymore, but still, we know what we're talking about. That weaved bag that we all use to pack things, to travel, all of that. It had been made and put there. Are we okay? That's all I'm going to say on that. So we should not be afraid of the fact that that's going to become a reality, and that's okay. It happens. Yeah. So that was my weekend last week. It was so much fun. I want to do more stuff like that. I want to talk more. I mean, I feel like that's kind of one of the things, one of the reasons for this anyway. But I'm trying to yap about the things that I care about more. That was such a fun conversation, and there's so much more that I could say on it. It actually reminds me of the Met Gala. Um, there's a video that I made. I didn't post it. I should have posted it, but I didn't because I was just like, oh, I don't know. I don't like. I feel nervous when it comes to talking about fashion because it's like, do I have all the credentials that I need? But at the end of the day, like, why am I talking so fast? I've been doing this since I was 15. I may not have all of the wisdom because I don't know anyone that does, but it does matter to me. But basically, what I was saying was there was a common theme with the Met Gala that I was seeing in this year, which was a lot of people being like, I expected more. And especially like when looking at someone like Zendaya, it's like, oh my God, let's use her as the example here. Oh my God, I expected more from her. Like, yes, like she looked incredible, but still. Um, Basically, what I was thinking about when looking at the Met Gala was like, because I had expectations too. I was expecting to be blown out of the park, which I was with certain looks. But what also hit me was that like this specific year, we were the standard. You don't always have to outdo yourself. We were the theme, at least generally. I understand. Oh my God, there need to be more colors and this, and that. But like, where's the colors? Where's the bold print? Where's the like dandyism? But it is right there. I'm gonna say 45, just for grace. 45% of black dandyism is this skin color, in my opinion. So I think we are already constantly used, and I'm talking about African Americans, Africans in diaspora, and Africans in general. We are used to consistent scrutiny. We can't now come and be scrutinizing ourselves here again. That was my thing. I understand some people did not try at all. Some people did not try, so I'm not going to mention no names. But for me, it was a thing of like, we didn't need to outdo ourselves here. We are the benchmark. And the people who needed to show up, who needed to meet the mark, they met the mark. I'm happy for them. But for those of us who make up the reality of black dandyism, I don't know that there was really more to do. I understand that it's not there's nothing wrong with breaking the boundaries and doing better than you did last time and all that. But I think Zendaya's look really like minister to me. And I'm gonna use that word, minister to me, that like I am I am the I am the benchmark here this time. She looked incredible. Cause I feel like Janelle Monae, that's who she is normally. Like when we see her dress up, that's what we're expecting. She blew it out the park, but like that's typical of her, is it not? So I think grace is necessary. But anywho, that's that. I'm not gonna do too much. On to today's episode. Oh my god, also, I'm not sure if it was last week or the week before. One of my faves in the fashion space, Fisayo Longe, the owner, the CEO of Kai Collective, she got engaged. Made my entire week. I love that woman, and that would be have to be a separate episode or talk. I love her, and she got engaged, and I love her man for her. I love it. There's so much I can say on that, but let's leave that for another day, please. Let's leave that for another day. The fact that he didn't let the proposal coincide with the big year she had last year. What a lovely man. Let's get into the episode. So, as you can tell from the title, we're going to be talking about nakedness. Yeah, we're going to talk about nakedness. I wrote some things down. Before meeting Bamba, I was a Nigerian Christian girl who grew up in a Christian household with parents that were ministers. Of course, I was more than that, but in this context, right? A Nigerian Christian girl with Nigerian parents. My parents loved the Lord, and I'm not even talking about like everybody loves the Lord. No, no, it's quite visible. Quite visible. It was quite visible in the way that they raised me. You know, I think you can tell a good parent when you see one. They are good parents, 100%. I had a view of God that was quite Nigerian, very. And I think even to this day, it intrigues me because that was not the God that was portrayed to me in my household. But I think, and this is something that I've been saying about a lot of things recently, I have a theory that the collective consensus, like, no, the collective consciousness of the people that live in a place will affect you whether or not you subscribe to it or not. You just have to be aware of the fact that it can affect you. Not that it will, but it can affect you. So you have to keep it in mind that it can. Does that make sense? My parents never really spoke to me about the Lord in the way that I summed him up to be, based off of all of the energy that I was receiving, right? And of course, things happen. Oh, you're expecting this from God, it doesn't happen. People say stuff like, "Oh, Lord doesn't care about your emotions," yada yada. Again, playing into the disease that is plaguing Nigeria, one of the diseases anyway, which is this idea that like emotions are not a priority, even though we live with them from the minute we come out of our mother's wombs. But that's for a different day. They're seen as a plague, basically. And if they're a plague, God cannot be saddled with such things, right? So even though he's supposed to be the absorber of everything. But again, I digress. The collective consciousness of a place, a city, a country, a world can affect your view on any subject. There's certain things that like I remember never actually being taught or hearing, but they were already like base beliefs. Of course, we know that there are spirits everywhere, whatever you want to call them, spirits, energies, voices that are stating their claim. They're advertising their views. And if you don't put up strongholds, and I say strongholds because a stronghold is basically a place of safety, strongholds to defend your mind against them, you believe them without even knowing. And if we know anything about vagabonds, specifically the vagabond of vagabonds, he stays working hard. So one day I will explain why I call Satan a vagabond. That's a whole different story. That's such a cool story, but that'll have to be for a different episode. In essence, thoughts, words, they carry a lot of weight. Whether the ones that you hear with your heart or the ones that you hear audibly, they carry weight. And the way the atmosphere portrayed God was very different to what I believed him to be. But it didn't matter because it had already seeped in. Now, the beautiful thing about the Lord is that everything has to work out in the way that He wants. And so, even though in the moment I didn't know that fight, that was that contempt, because basically I had contempt in my heart for the Lord, right? Because of the things that He was portrayed to be. I didn't realize that contempt would be playing a very big part in me falling in love with Him or getting to know Him for real. Even though, again, in my own household, that was not the case. But this is the thing, my parents were portraying God in human form. So I had become comfortable with them. I didn't mind God being like a grandparent in that way because my parents are impeccable. So I was like, well, the people that I have on earth here that I can see face to face, God level. Of course, when I met Baba, he had to dethrone them, and he did. But the point is, that was a reality for me. The thing that got me was that he seemed to match up more with the things that the atmosphere had to say than with what my parents were saying or who my parents were. So it's like, on one end, I believe he's real, and on the other end, it's like, ugh, I believe because I was born into this. You know what I mean? I believe that he didn't care about my emotions. I believe that he needed respect more than he needed to be understood. I believe that he couldn't be questioned because obviously, if I had to question him, I'd realize that he was incompetent, but we couldn't question that because he was God. I believe that he cared more about being obeyed and respected at all costs. It didn't matter what was happening, he just had to be obeyed, right? His ego had to be managed by us in obedience and respect. I believe that he was transactional with his love. That is, if he had it to begin with. I believe that he was transactional. I believe that because I was a girl, I meant less to him. Even if he wasn't a grave misogynist, he had certain misogynistic traits. And you see, that also contradicted the love that I received from my human father. So, you know, I believe that he was ancient and not in a good way. He was a pot bellied, heavy 10 wraps of amala eating pot-bellied Nigerian man with beer on the side. So because he has advanced in age, we need to cater and pander to him. Yeah, that's what I believe that his godness was built on. I guess you can see that like a lot of my, and I feel like people have different experiences because you hear a lot of stories about how people believed in God so much while they lived in Nigeria, and when they moved, they had no reason to. But mine was the other way around. Mine was the other way around. I guess it could have turned out that way, but I had a lot of questions, and I had been raised in a household where it was important to my parents that I was bold and I spoke up and I said things that I felt. We used to have purge days on Sundays. Sometimes it would be on Sunday, sometimes it'd be over the weekend, where we'd sit our parents down and be like, "You see this thing, could it work? This thing you did here was not good." And I literally could see my parents taking the posture of humility. You know when you can see it, they've been raised a specific way, they've seen life lived away, and they could decide to just act the way that the people before them did, but they fought they fought pride. I could see it. So again, you see why there was so much contrast. So for those reasons and for many more, I was satisfied. I was like, listen, he's not all bad. Like, people believe in things, right? This is my own, no problem. I have parents that I love, I'll be fine. Up until I was 10, I had gone to church all my life. My parents were ministers, like I said, but one day my dad said that we were going to stop because it wasn't about Baba anymore. It was now commercial. So a lot of what I learned about the Lord in my preteen teenage years was at home with my family, sitting with my parents. Now, obviously, that changed again my reality or my idea of him. because now it was at that point that I started to realize that who I thought he was subpar. I expected more from him. That was when I realized it. Because when I was younger, I mean, you hear things. Yes, we all love God. We love God. Like you watch the Passion of the Christ, you cry. You know what I'm saying? It was one sided at the time. He loved me with all his heart. I had experiences where I was like, am I? Do I have like an imaginary best friend that's like a superhero or something? Like I had those types of experiences, but it didn't mean anything because my mind hadn't come to a place where like I could really understand what was happening. My parents were planting seeds and they were entering, but I don't know that they were growing. The seeds were growing. I'm realizing that it sounds a way because if you ask me growing up, I can't tell you that I despised him. I couldn't tell you that. I think if I ever heard someone even talk about him a certain way, I would defend him. But I think that's what happens with nature, like and nurture. You naturally see things. You're growing up a specific way, and so like things just kind of happen or come out of you. So I can't tell you that I despised him, but a lot of what I was learning about him, I didn't feel like there was space to question anyway. And so it was one of those things where, for the most part, I didn't care because I wasn't actively looking for him anyway. But on the other side, it would cause me to be upset with my parents or anyone who had any kind of like authority because I mean you can imagine living in a country like Nigeria where like power is almost always corrupted. And I felt like he was just like them, barbaric, ignorant, greedy, selfish. Yeah, felt that he was a passive, soft oppressor. Yeah, yeah. The ones that like if you don't poke them, they don't poke you. But we know what the situation is. Like that's how I felt. So he was still God. So I had to watch my tone. Forget. It was only after I met him that I started to realize I was able to arrange things into different areas where it's like, oh, you see, I believe you here, right? But I also didn't like you here, and I didn't like you here, and I believed you here. Like things started to make sense because before it was just all muddled up and messy. My eyes opened, and I started to see parts of things that I didn't see before. That even though like I had all these feelings about him that were so deep seated that I didn't even realize that they needed to be worked on or changed or anything, I still lived in a house where the love of the Lord and the idea of him existed. And so I was learning things, but it wasn't until I was awakened, until I met him, that all those seeds that were planted started to just come up, come up, come up, come up. Things that my dad would say, and I was like, I think I understand, but I didn't. And it's like, oh, or my mom was saying, I'm like, oh, you know what I'm saying? A lot of things changed in a very short time after meeting him. Things started to make sense. It was like for the first time, I realized that he had been keeping tabs of all of my thoughts and all of my big ideas, and he took his time to break them down and really like explain himself to me, caused me to see him in a different light. We started to go on a serious journey of like, let me tell you who I am. You've heard from people, you've heard this and that, things that are true, things that are not true, things that are like there was so much information. He was like, oh, let me introduce myself to you for real. So one of the first things he said to me that was actually quite interesting was he said, I'm not a Nigerian parent. That's what he said. No, first he said, I'm not a Nigerian. Then he said, I'm not a Nigerian parent. And mind you, my parents are not even like typical Nigerian parents, but I think it was important to him that he said that because I had also been around other people who are typical Nigerians, who are typical Nigerian parents. And I think that can have an effect on you. You know, I went to boarding school. Let's not even talk about that. But when I heard it, I was like, interesting. Okay. So you know that this is how I summed you up. I think that was important. And I think when he said I'm not a Nigerian parent, he wasn't referring to just being a parent. He's not a Nigerian politician. He's not a Nigerian teacher. He's not a Nigerian. Full stop. It was important. Not that he doesn't have children that are Nigerian, but he's not a Nigerian. He had to say that to me. So that was kind of like a turning point as well. And then he started to show me all the things that I believed about him, putting him in the box of being a Nigerian. Like, for one, he's removed, completely removed from emotional intelligence. Trauma is not a thing, right? He just buries it. Turmoil, not a thing either. No, not that it's not even a thing. It's glorified because we need something to hold on to, right? He's short. He has no patience for humanity. This one is not really a Nigerian thing, it's just in general. He's not good. He's not good. Except there's something in it for him. He's not good, right? He's also not intelligent. Yeah. Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of the Nigerian population do not really understand what education is, really. And I get it, because at one point our lives were hijacked from us, and intelligence only mattered if we could serve those who had stolen from us. Yeah. And so I understand it. Oh, get a good job. Oh. So we never want to have to be in a place where we're at a loss or less than we can be. And so I understand. I think it's important to say, like, I'm not saying that the lives that people have lived are completely thrown in the garbage because they don't understand certain things or whatever. What I am saying is that it's sad that we can see why certain things have happened the way that they have, but God is merciful. And for me, it's not even about what has happened, it's about whether we are willing to change our futures. Are you willing to be open? Are you willing to listen? Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of people are not. That's the issue. It's one thing to be ignorant, it's another thing to want to be ignorant. It's another thing to despise knowledge that you did not acquire yourself because it's coming from a specific source. Things of that sort. But anywho, yeah, I didn't believe that he was intelligent because some of the things that people would say and take it as word or as law or as wisdom, I was like, it cannot be. If you believe this, wow. I mean, he had to show me that, like, oh, babe, I'm ancient, but I'm transcendent. I don't exist in time. The life that you live now, I've been here already, and I've also passed it. I'm here right now. I'm in the future that you haven't seen, and I'm in the past. So I don't believe that anyone ever said certain things to me out loud. Again, I don't remember that they were ever said out loud. Some things were passive. Some things I deduced from people's mannerisms. Some things I heard in whispers. I wasn't even a part of the conversation, and they stuck. Constant whispers of darkness, of which I know they came from Satan now, but at that time I couldn't know that. But now I'm fully aware that those whispers came from that place. The weight of questions unanswered, demonic expressions of religion. And when I say demonic expressions of religion, I'm talking choosing slavery in hope of control, right? We don't want a world where everything is out of our hands. So anything we can grab onto, we grab, which is, whoa, whoa, hold up. And none of these things were necessarily like voiced. It was certain things said one way, and it just carried, like, for example, we thank God though. When you hear that, it's obvious that it's like he ain't do nothing, but like, shit, I'm supposed to thank him, so that's just what I'm gonna do. You could hear it. You could hear that the choice was succumbing to a reality that you didn't actually believe. You could hear it. There's too much to be said on this topic. But I hope that this can start a conversation, right? We can talk about it. And the thing is, as much as I've mentioned all these things, because if you know me, I hate talking about Satan, because what we glorify is what takes up space in our minds. Baba whispered too, and that's where I'm coming. He whispered. And the thing is, he didn't feel the need to make himself the more appealing choice. He knew that with time, if he came to me, if he got my attention, if he had a little bit of my time, he could prove himself. So it didn't matter that at one point there were things I believed and I hated him, even without knowing. It didn't matter to him because he knew that who he was truth. And with time, that truth will be made a reality for me, right? I have many experiences too of his light. The first time I realized that I could see into the future. That's gonna sound so weird. But there was a week where, like, I would literally be sitting somewhere and I'd get a flash of something and then it would happen afterward. I didn't know what that meant. I was young. Mind you, Let me say 2 weeks after that, I learned about masturbation, but that's not the point. The point is he littered himself so that when the time came and his son was upon me, all the little fragments that he had dropped will speak out and connect me to him. You know what I mean? It's like if there's glass broken in the grass, if sun comes upon it, they reflect, that kind of thing. He knew. So he wasn't worried. Train up a child in the way that they should go so that when they are old, they will not depart from it. He's not giving a suggestion. It cannot happen that you have received the light of God, whether you knew it was light or not, because you have to have open eyes to discern light. Whether you knew it was light or not, it will eventually come for you. Basically, he will eventually come for you. So now I'm sure that wherever you're listening from, you can kind of relate to this. Wherever you're from, beliefs that were central in general, but like no one really ever said, but like settled in your heart. I'm sure we can all relate. I'm sure we can. Because the thing with reality, it is that it is first birthed in the thought realm, in the spirit realm. There are beliefs that we were never taught, but we carry because of the law of sin and death. That was a law that we were born into, right? And imagine that idiot, that vagabond, you know, because of, and I'm sure some of us are familiar with this, because of the fall of Adam and Eve giving authority over to Satan. Imagine if you owned an art museum and you created all the art in there. We would be able to see parts of your character, your mind, your thoughts, your way of being in the art. So if you give that art studio over to someone else and they start painting, what we're consuming is their mind and their thoughts and their essence. That's basically what happened with the fall. Adam blaming his wife and then his wife blaming Satan instead of being like, you know what, I did wrong, right? Doing that basically because you were the one that was given dominion. So what you're saying is that you couldn't control what's happening here, so you gave your dominion over to a different person. So obviously, because of that, the law of sin and death. He is the king of that, of darkness, right? So that's basically it. And then we see, of course, our second Adam, Jesus, my best friend, owning up, right? Coming as a mortal and saying, actually, I did it. Actually, that's my fault. Yeah, yeah, basically. But we're not going to go too much into that. I'm just saying that so we understand like why that is a possibility where it's like things you never were taught, or like things that maybe were never actually said, beliefs or belief systems have been built on them in your mind. And because many people have come and gone and believe these things, right? Thoughts are material. They may not be visible, but they carry weight, they carry energy. So even thinking things, Bible says if you think lustfully about a woman, you have already committed adultery. That can seem quite crazy, but that's actually the fact. If you can finish the thought in your mind soon, and very soon, you will finish it. And this is the thing, it's not that those thoughts are not going to come because someone will hear and think, hey, God, no, 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 wait first, wait. The point now is that we must allow God to mediate. Father, I commit that to you because I don't know why I was thinking about that, but I was. And of course, I can't do this by myself, so help me. You know what I'm saying? It's not a matter of, hey, God, I'm condemned, because that was not the reason that the Lord was sharing that with us. He was sharing it with us so we knew the magnitude and the power behind our thoughts and imaginations, basically. Because many people have been here and gone and believed it and breathed it, it doesn't have to be said for it to become a reality. Even when we think about the lack of emotional vulnerability, yes, we see it modeled, but is anyone actually opening their mouth and saying, no, I'm not going to give myself the chance to be honest? No one ever says that. No one does. But it just happens, right? Unless, people are willing to open their hearts up and stuff like that. We don't really hear that. So what does that tell us? Thoughts, imaginations carry weight. Because I feel like that also explains the expressions of the nature of self and the law of sin and death that we do see in the world. Because why is it so similar everywhere? Why are the expressions so similar everywhere? Because it's one mind one limited, one dark, one unfortunate mind that all of these ideas are coming from. And if you notice, a lot of these ideas oppose Baba's ideas. Why? Because he hits him. And these are the things that he hopes to believe or hopes that we will believe about Baba. And this is the thing, Baba exists in everything. I mean, he's oxygen, right? He's the reason we're here. So it bleeds into the things that are abstract, things that can be articulated, because that's the if that is his entire being. He is against anything that is God. And I feel like as this podcast goes on, we'll talk about what is God, because I feel like we have ideas of what that is, but I hope that this is breaking into that place of, learning about him as God himself and as an all encompassing being, right? Out of him flows all of creation. So there's him, his person, and then his work. Getting to immerse ourselves in those things will like change our perspective and help us see ourselves as well, truly. Because I think that when we even talk about dying to self, it's not dying to Ol'edo, right? It's dying to the nature of self, dying to the Ol'edo created by the nature of self, not Ol'edo, because there's an Ol'edo that is found in Christ. She's very much alive as she needs to be. And I think that something I wrote down actually that I feel like needs to be said is that what we are experiencing a lot, if you're someone who constantly battles, maybe you grew up in church, you grew up around church people, and you've struggled with being at peace with the God that you've been told about, it is a lot of the time because our view of God has been veiled. It has been veiled by the disappointment that Satan's mind is. He's stunted, right? And because a lot of the things that we experience on the like worldly level are from his point of view, we are disappointed by that reality. He's a disappointment. Because think about it. Imagine being made of God material, as in made of God, built by God, and having to move through life in the dark to your actual birthright. So there's a way you're meant to live, but you're not living that way. You will be disappointed and you will resent the one that was supposed to give you that life, right? You resent the idea of him, right? Because like this is not what it should be, but it is. Living a stunted life when you were made to be eternal is hard. It's uncomfortable, it's irritating, it's all the things. That's not to say that now being awakened to the life that you're meant to live is not uncomfortable sometimes or hard, but it's an abundant life. It's thrilling. It's filled with all the beauty of creation, all the beauty of life and what God wanted for us. So, to be honest, yeah, I understand. So if you're in that place, I get it completely. I know what it feels like to have to just be like managing, living in second gear. That's something my dad used to say. Living in second gear, and it's like, but am I not a god in my own right? And what I mean by that is, oh, let us make man in our image. Please, oh. I'm talking about God complex, oh. I'm talking about the reality. As he is in heaven, so are we in this world. Ye are like gods. There's scripture to back this. So why am I living like this? Like someone that was cast out. Why? So I get it. Now, onto the nakedness. When I met him, relative to what I know now, what I experienced was a glimpse of his beauty. And that glimpse that I saw, I was willing to live as a slave. I didn't even know that I wanted to live as a slave, but I was willing to because I thought, oh my God, he's actually not, he's real one, and he loves me. And like the things I thought about him are not the truth. Okay, then that's fine. I still had questions, myriad of them, but I didn't care anymore. I was like, you know what? If he's a little oppressatory in some ways, that's okay. We can manage. I was ready. I was naive. I didn't understand. But this is the beautiful thing about the Lord. Nothing about him is evil. So even when I was ready to blindly give him my allegiance, he refused to take my naivety. He refused. Even till this day, there are many things that I believed. He would just randomly say, "Oh, you remember this thing that you thought about me? Actually, so." He by force, and I'll be like, I even ask?" He didn't care that I whether I asked. It was important to him that if he was going to receive full nakedness from me, I would receive nakedness from him. So as much as God saw me naked, I get to see him naked consistently. He sees me naked all that well, but I get to see him naked. I don't know what it is, but and this is the way I'm gonna say it. He can't help but show me who he is. I've always been the type of person to be willing to listen, to give the benefit of the doubt. But with him, I was like, I'm gonna wait until this makes sense because the little I've seen of you, I'm expecting more. My expectations are too high. To whom much is given, much is expected. You have my entire life, so you better be worth it. And I can say that up until this point, he is very much worth it. Very much. He didn't take my naivety. He didn't take it as a license or as his license to rule over me. He refused. When I say he refused, I mean he refused. He said, I need you to see me for who I am. I need you to. He's kind, he's fair. Yeah, it was important to him that he was a stark difference from every person who has ever held authority that I knew. He needed to be different. He needed to show me that his authority was not based, nobody put him there. And so it didn't matter that he was king. He had to be honest. He had to be kind because it was in his nature to be that way. That taught me a lot. He made himself bare before me. And as our trust and relationship grew, I needed to find out more about him because the more you see him, the more you see him, the more you see him. When something doesn't make sense, you're like, I'll wait for the reality, you know? And I think that also taught me about why his voice sometimes is still and small because it's not about fighting for your audience. If you know him, you will wait for the still and small because there's a lot of noise. You will always be willing perpetually to wait, to ask, to seek, and to knock for the still and small. Not that he can't speak loudly, but I think it's more about why he needs to be still and small, why he needs to swim against the tide. Because it's contradictory when we think about kingship now and in this life, and not in every way, but oh, they have to be the loudest, their chair has to be the highest in the room. That always picking things that look physically as strength or power or authority, but Bobbin does not need to do that at all because those standards were put in place by human beings. Oh, in order for me to respect person, they have to sit higher than me. It doesn't matter if he's sitting at the bottom. It doesn't matter if he went and made his headquarters hell. He would still be God of the universe. None of us put him there. So he was so confident, so stable. I have never met anyone as emotionally stable as the Lord. And when I say emotionally stable, I'm saying I've seen his raw emotion before. Even just reading the word, you can see it there. I've seen him be emotional. I've seen him be emotional, but it was the stability of it. Learning that in order for the wave of emotions to calm, we have to walk through them. I learned that from him. So confident and so emotionally stable. I'm like, what? I'm like, for 18 years, I did not pay you any mind. What do you mean that you're confident in us? What are we even talking about? But his confidence made me confident. His stability helped me understand stability and search for it in my own life and come into the reality of it. I fully expected another shoe to drop or the other shoe to drop. To this day, well, I'm not expecting it anymore, but I had expectations. It never dropped. Even when I was like, oh, once we turn this corner, you're going to be a different person. We turned the corner. We turned the corner. We turned the corner. I'm the only one that's consistently changing. She's still the same. I'm the only one that's coming into more understanding of myself and finding out who I really am. He's still the same person and he's still enough. More than enough. Crazy. Crazy. I feel like I'm glazing him a lot, but it's genuinely the reality. One of the things that I also ended up learning was that I don't control him because I wanted so badly. I was like, no, you're good, you're good. So I don't need to know anything else. Let me just stick with this reality because we get disappointed and it's like, oh, the more that you see someone, the higher a chance for them to hurt you or disappoint you, whatever. So I was like, you know what? Let me keep what I know. And he's like, you don't control me. This is a relationship. I am not a genie. I'm not a genie. I had to learn to be patient and wait in faith that he was the person that he had told me that he was. And he's like, I waited 18 years. Well, he didn't say that, but in my mind, it's like he has waited 18 plus. And for some people, he's been waiting 20 plus, 30 plus years. Of course, time is not the same for him, but regardless, he's waiting. I can't wait for him for a couple days, maybe a day, maybe an hour. I can't wait. I can. But one thing I learned about waiting is that in the God sense anyway, it's not about time, it's about the posture of your heart. When I learned about perpetuity, it stopped taking time to hear from him. It stopped being about time because I think for me it was like, oh, I won't give him anything that doesn't cost me anything, so I'll give him 3 days. I'll give him 10 days when I fast. And then I realized it was about how highly I esteemed his voice and the need, the necessity of it. When that happened, and this is the first time I've ever been able to actually explain that. When that happened, now, if something happens now and I need to hear from him now, it doesn't matter how grave, how big, how small, I'll hear him now. And even if I don't, it doesn't mean anything because he has to respond. Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you find. Knock and the door shall be opened. He has to do that. But yeah, remember what I was saying earlier about feeling contempt. That anger, that contempt, that need to rebel against a specific idea that I lived by was the droplets of him coming to light. I needed to wrestle with what I believed about him for him to become real. I needed to be okay with possibly being wrong in the moment about my entire reality, right? And I think that that is why, from a very young age, I hated the conversation of hell and heaven, of rapture, because of the finality of it. It wasn't about knowing a person, it wasn't about him being good. It was only about myself, me ending up in a place that would mean that I was comfortable forever, me not having to deal with burning for the rest of my life. I had to abandon that. I had to. I was like, I don't care. Who are you now? Who are you now? I had to rebel against the need to be like, I hope I'm right with the Lord because I don't know when I will go. Okay, cool. That is so cool. Great. I needed, I couldn't help it. There was never a time where I could help it. I constantly felt the need to fight. There was always this thing happening within my chest. And then when I met him, I understood. I understood. I understood. The part of me that he had in his hand, he wasn't letting it up. He didn't let up. He didn't let up. Yeah, I didn't let up. You know, rebelling against the ideas and the laws and the plagues of the law of sin and death really helped me to grow in this relationship. And there were times I was even afraid to rebel because I'm like, what if this is how God feels? Even if it was how he felt, the beautiful thing about the Lord is that anything that we do not agree with when it comes to him is because we do not have the knowledge, enough knowledge to agree. It is never about him having to force his ideas on us because me and him, we are the same. He's my father. It's our kingdom, it's our world. And so if there's something that I fundamentally disagree about with him, right, that pertains to life, to eternity, to godliness, is because there's a part of him I don't yet understand. I think that we need to give Baba grace. We need to give him a second. We need to be calmer with him because yes, he's God, but like he's also a person. And when I say we need to be calmer, I mean don't ostracize him because he's a God. Don't do that. Give him the chance to explain himself. Give him the chance to fight for that. You know? give him the chance to fight for himself, put him on the stand. We never do that because he's God. Like I feel like there's such a finality in the way that we view his character. It's like that's what he believes, so no problem. But why does he never get a chance to explain himself? And I think Satan banks on the fact that we will write him off because he's higher than I or something. I don't know. But no now. Please. Let's give him a chance to explain himself. Growing up, I was always a very, very big talker. Oh my god, I love to talk. I love to talk. And so my mom, she used to say to me, like, you have such a powerful personality and presence, and you're quite a talker. But listen, you have to learn to listen to people. She taught me how to listen. She said, don't listen to respond, listen to really hear. Sometimes abandon what you had to say for the sake of others. And so I think that really also bled into my relationship with Baba because when I would talk, or think, I said, no, this is a relationship. You have to also, like, I have to give you a chance to speak as well. I've spoken for 3 days and I haven't heard anything back. Cool. I'm going to give you a chance to speak. This is a relationship. It's reciprocal. It can't be one way, you know? That really helped me. Helped me to give him space. It helped me to wait for him. It didn't matter what he had to say. He needed to say something. He needed to. I would ask him 1,000 questions. I would talk. Oh. And the funny thing is, it could be a couple weeks later. He's like, "Oh, remember?" I'm like, ah. And he's like, "Yes, you said many things." So I'm responding one by one. I'm like, "Yeah." I needed to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've known enough about him to know that, like, if he hadn't said something immediately, it just meant that I needed to know more about him. There was more to travel. Yeah. So I learned over time because it was not immediately. I learned to associate the space with the need to travel with him. Right? He was taking me somewhere. And obviously with time as well, I learned to see his face and understand his gestures. So sometimes he doesn't actually like talk like with words. That's a whole different conversation. But like I can see his face, his mannerisms. He be making faces. I can sense him. So with time, I learned like, oh, he's just walking me to a place. He's waiting for me to understand this. He's calling me here. I mean, the Bible does say that He has placed eternity in the heart of man. So I'm constantly like waiting to hear something and to hear something and to understand something. I'm constantly, perpetually like delving deeper. Eternity. It's eternal. Thankfully, He is eternity. So I'm always satiated. Not always immediately, but it happens all the time. Another thing I want to say, so it doesn't sound like it was all like rosy. I don't even think anything I've said makes it sound like it was all rosy, but I was open to being disappointed. Because after you are afraid of the outcome for a while, you're like, you know what? I beg, if I perish, I perish, man. There's nothing I can do. I was open to disappointment. I said, listen, if he does it, he does it, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. I'm currently learning that as well in the area of him providing. I think for the longest time it was about I was learning that in our dynamic, but now I'm in a place where I'm learning it in terms of him providing everything I need, and I mean materially. I'm in a place where I'm learning that now, and it's like, if he doesn't come true, he doesn't come true. But so far, he has. I'm learning a lot about him. I'm always learning a lot, but this is just some of the stuff that I have learned over time. As a kid growing up watching Nickelodeon and Disney and all that, when like kids figure out that they have like a magical friend that just helps them through things and whatever. Because of that, for some reason, I always longed for him to have a magical texture to him. He felt a little too flat, a little too three-dimensional, you know? But as I got to know him, I realized why that desire was so deep in my heart, so deep in my soul. Not everyone has that experience with watching cartoon, but for me, I guess as someone who's into like being a creative, when I would watch it, I'm like, why are you not like this? Why do I feel like I've already summed you up? Why do I feel like you don't live up to what I'm seeing on screen? And then with time, of course, he gifted me with his presence and his person. And I was like, oh, yeah. Even this morning, there was somewhere I was like, I don't know if I should go. I don't know. I'm walking. The breeze was breezy. But this particular breeze, I could tell that he was like, I don't want you here. And I'm like, are you so dramatic? But I asked for this. I literally, I desired his dramaticism or whatever. Every single story that ever made me feel like, oh, like, Baba, why aren't you like this? He was indeed like that. Even when I think about the story of Zeus, and not Zeus, Hercules, rather. Hercules was, he ended up having to live with human parents. He was an orphan, all that kind of stuff. And life wasn't making sense. And he talks about going the distance and how, like, he will go almost anywhere to feel like he belongs. And so when he met the god versions of himself, which he had just been living as a human all of his life, it made sense. I feel like a lot of us, we wrestle with our reality because we don't know that we are Hercules and our father is Zeus. And I've said this before. I have a video on TikTok talking about it. But I think that was a great reminder for me. And the thing is, whether the people who wrote them know, love the Lord or not, there is a part of them that is looking for that texture, looking for their being, And so they create stories to match, you know, that desire. And that's the thing. He is that being. He is supposed to be our being. Um, we're made of his fabric. We're just like him, just in a different body. And we don't yet know, like, how, like, where we fit in, where, what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of, what is my purpose? Who am I? Da 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 da. Getting to know him reveals that. It does. It shows you who you are. You exist fully within him. I learned that he is perfect, not in the way that human beings perceive perfection because they think that they're imperfect or they are met with imperfection all the time. Not perfect in that way. And so getting to see him undiluted, his perfection is less about our imperfection and more about his character, who he is in totality. So beautiful, confident, healthy ass boundaries. Oh my God. His boundaries, he's got them. Yeah. He's jealous. He's jealous in the best way possible. Jealous over what we have with him, jealous over the persons that he has made us and those persons coming to light. He's artistic. Oh my God. I mean, I feel like that one is the plainest that we can possibly see, even. He's artistic and powerful in the most comforting way, powerful in the most comforting way. For some reason, he was just worth hearing out. I just felt like I needed to give him a chance. I just felt like I needed to. And then I did, and I do not regret it at all. At all. I do not regret it at all. And what it feels like to me was that he was my father in eternity, right? We existed at one point before I took on human form. He was my father in eternity. And now, in my real life, well, not in my real life, but in my human life, I was meeting him again for what felt like the first time. And so I had to give him the benefit of the doubt, you know? I feel like this episode is going to be a lot of, like, just information. But yeah, I felt like that was what I was supposed to talk about. Yeah. Some thoughts of the week. Like, I'm going to try to do this every episode. Thoughts of the week. Hard conversations are necessary for peace. Hard conversations are necessary for peace. Yeah. I think another thing that has I've been thinking about recently is how I've been blessed abundantly by Baba with people that I love with all of my heart. Not only am I talking about my blood relatives, but I'm talking about my my kingdom blood relatives, like people that God has handpicked by himself, and we've built relationships that will forever, I believe, last. For however they are supposed to last, they will last. When people hurt you, for me anyway, I find it hard to tell them that they've hurt me because I don't want to give them the chance to hurt me further by not caring or to take my vulnerability for granted. I don't want to cast my pearls before swine, basically. What I consider to be pearls. And I've been like, Bubba, That's genuinely how I am. Like, I will actually just leave a thing. But he's like, that's pride, sweetheart. It is pride. And I'm like, fine. And I think also because growing up, I hated confrontation like mad. Anything that resembled confrontation, I left it because I didn't want all hell to break loose. What other thoughts do I have? I no longer really enjoy breaded chicken burgers. Just like smoke it, smoke the chicken, Why are we breading it? And the burger will now be large. What do you think? You want me to unlock my jaw to chop it? I don't get it. But anywho, yeah, I love you all, right? See you in the next episode. Ooh, I almost forgot. It's going to be every 2 weeks. We're going to be getting episodes every 2 weeks. I don't even know if the space between the last one and this one is 2 weeks, but listen, I've said it now. Every 2 weeks, we get a new episode. And maybe I have to pick a date where we will be posting them. Tomorrow is Monday, so it might be coming up today, right? But anywho, I love you guys so much. I'm Ol'edo. This has been the Seed Podcast, and I have been your host. See you in 2 weeks.
She steps out, walks with grace with her chest out.